pricing. So yeah, so take
50 million.
that price and throw 20%.
I was gonna say 45.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it depends on, where you're doing it and
Yeah.
what it looks like and that sort of thing, but yeah, easily 45, 50 million. Yeah.
And obviously, we've discussed this before, the position that we're in because of, again, the fiscal, incredible fiscal work that we've done. And like you said, the 55% of our district is non-residential, which is fantastic, but we have bond capacity right now. I mean, we're not hurting for that. So we've come out of it not just having done a great job with this, but we're actually relatively well-positioned looking ahead, so.
Well, not only do we have bond capacity moving forward, but this board made the decision to do this work without compromising the bond capacity that we have, while also offering taxpayer relief. The local level decision makers are fully capable of making good decisions in the name of taxpayers. And this board demonstrated that by the way it handled these decisions during that 19 bond program.
Well, to that point, and I'll say this very briefly, is the board might recall, and Colin, you weren't here, Jonathan wasn't here, but the rest of y'all well remember, I think it was over the course of 3 different meetings. It was a very, very deliberate, really working process to decide what's that number going to be. And after all that, we finally got to the 148, because that was not a, oh yeah, that's what we're going to do. I mean, it was a lot of work to get there. And I think work well worth doing. So
I know if we were a business, we would think about our real estate assets and have a number for that, for what that's worth. And I don't know, just doing the number in my head quickly, I mean, how many square feet do we manage?
So what was the number, Ken, that we just gave them for a facilities assessment on square feet? About 1.6 million?
Yeah, so at an average of $300 a square foot or whatever it is, we've got close to $1 billion
Yes,
worth of assets that we manage
Yes, sir.
and care for. That's a big number.
On behalf of the children,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you all to everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your help and input during that presentation.
You carried the labor and ore. We ready for consideration items, folks?
Yes, sir.
If so, consent agenda, we have our minutes from our August regular meeting, our right-of-way easement with the city of Waco for out by River Valley, interlocal agreement with the city of Woodway on a lighting project, our members for the shack for this year, our district improvement goals and objectives that Becky went over, a couple of local policy updates, a couple early graduation requests, and the budget amendments that Wesley talked about. Does anybody wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Watts.
Second.
Second by Mr. Alford. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Consideration of resolution to nominate candidates for the MCAD, they changed their name, they're Central now. Board of Directors, I visited with Mr. Green. Y'all know that we've nominated him before and cast our votes to elect him, whether he was willing to continue to serve. He said he was. So I move that we nominate Mr. Green.
Second?
All right. We have a motion and a second for that. That does not foreclose us making other nominations, but we'll vote on that one first. Any discussion on that?
Thank you for continuing to serve.
Yeah.
If no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. The floor is open. We can still nominate other people besides that, remembering the lay of the land hadn't changed for the taxing entities. They still get divvied up 5,000 votes that are prorated based on their what taxes they levy. Separate and apart from that, as y'all know, the voters in McLennan County now elect 3 people, separately from what the taxing entities do. So, and I don't know, Jonathan, do y'all know yet within the board who's gonna get the short terms, you know, because they're gonna do that to stagger the terms?
Right, no, I asked Jim Halbert, the new chief appraiser, and he had told me that he had a conversation with Robert Myers fairly recently, and that there isn't any guidance on what that is for which appointed members are gonna have which term, so that remains to be seen. But one comment I will make is that we did have our first MCAT meeting several weeks ago, and the 3 elected members from the county are very qualified, and we're very fortunate to have 3 very capable, very qualified people serving on the board, and not people that probably had ill intent for serving. So I think it'll be a good thing for the MCAT.
Very good. Anybody, other nominations or motions to nominate?
So do we need to put forward names in addition to Mr. Green or
No.
instead of?
No, not at all. I was just, it's there. You can nominate more than one, keeping in mind again, for our board, if we want to ensure that Jonathan gets elected, it's up to the board, but I would, at the appropriate time, and because have the number of votes, we have to vote early before we in the city of Waco, Waco ISD, and McLennan County, we all have to vote early, but that we cast all our votes for him so that we assure that he gets elected.
That's what I wanted to know.
And just for folks that, you know, because my wife said something to me about that, and I said, well, you got to understand, in round numbers, the 4 entities that I just named support, probably 85% of the MCAD budget. You know, and for us, not quite, 20% or something in that range of the money that goes, that comes from us as taxpayers for Midway ISD. So, yeah.
It behooves us to be represented over there.
I think it does.
Well, and to that end, we
I am, and then I may ask for Ken and Wesley to chime in if we need to, but we put out an RFQ for facility assessment. We received 9 proposals, I guess is what you'd call that. Of that 9, we narrowed that down to 4. Myself, Wesley Brooks, and Kim Wolf interviewed those 4 teams. And after talking to those firms, we landed on Pfluger Architects as the most qualified to do the work. And we all arrived at that same conclusion. And what we would want to do is engage them to do a facilities assessment only. And the reason I highlight that is this does not represent a change in direction in our relationship with other architects with whom we're already working. But there were a number of things about Pfluger that fit our criteria the best. And I can explain that if you'd like me to, but we all landed in that same place. And so we had good feedback on the RFQ, which was good. Like, that felt good. And then all the firms that we talked to were some of the bigger ones in the area and in the region. And of that group, we feel like we've landed in a position where we can get a really robust facilities assessment that we can use to help inform decisions about what we need to do to make sure that all of our facilities are upgraded and operating at their highest levels.
Funding for this?
We earmarked a piece of that out of bond funds from the last bond program. That's allowable use. Obviously, we have to engage them to talk about what the cost for these services would be, but we thought we have enough in bond funds to cover that.
So we don't have a number yet for cost.
So when you do an RFP, the difference between an RFQ and an RFP is an RFQ is you're trying to decide who's most qualified to do the work.
Right.
Based on industry standards, we have sort of some ideas. Industry standards are floating around these days a little bit, just in general. But no, that'd be the next step in the process.
Other questions?
And Fluger is based where?
You know, where are they based? Ken, I know that they're Texas
Pflugerville?
based. They do work all
Is
over
it
the state.
Pflugerville? 'Cause that
Keep
No,
thinking-
no, no,
I
no,
know,
no,
it's
no,
too
no,
simple
no.
if it was Pflugerville,
No.
I know.
Are they Austin areas where they're based? I know they have offices there, but I can't remember if they were Austin or Dallas. Okay, yeah, they're based in
Close to
Austin.
How
Pflugerville.
long of a process is that, do you think?
Well, they kind of told us that depends on us, but we feel like if we engage them here sooner rather than later, that we'll have feedback somewhere in the turn of the year, right? So like if not right before Christmas, soon thereafter.
And just so that folks are clear, this is not as a precursor to the board being asked to call a bond election.
It's information gathering is what this is. What this does, what the work that they'll do is they'll go building by building and they'll give us feedback on the age of almost everything that moves, what its projected end of life is, and then what the projection to either repair or replace that would be given its current end of life. And they'll look at everything, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, carpet, paint, envelopes, roofs. It'll do a couple different things for us. And one is it will help us have a better understanding for the exact scope of the work that needs to be done to make sure that as we're thinking about our aging facilities, we think about all of the things that they might need and we might not accidentally overlook something. The other thing it will do is it will help us look at whether or not we have any facilities that we need to be having discussions about, the board and the community about just aging out. Like bringing them up to standard might be something that we need to talk about as it times to build a new building and consider a replacement cost. I'm not sure is the exact word I want to use here, but they'll give us data about where we are with some of our facilities. I've said this in front of this group before, but it's funny to me how many people still call Midway High School the new high school. It's going on 20 years old. And people will talk about South Bosque, and they don't use the word new quite as much. One of our newer elementaries, again, it's got some age to it. And the thing that both those buildings have in common is last year they both blew water mains.
Yep.
And when we asked questions of the folks who did the repairs, they said they just wore out, like they just wore out. And we'd be better off getting ahead of some of that than like we missed the first day of school a year ago. Every time I say it, Sherry kind of twitches a little bit because she had to live through that. And we were lucky. We caught it Friday afternoon at the high school, so it didn't mess us up too bad. But we can't interrupt instruction because we can't keep the water flowing and because we can't keep the air conditioner going because we can't keep the lights on. Speaking of lights, it's Hewitt Elementary in the room. Dadgum, I can't keep the power on out there, that's not really an aging facility issue, but still. So we need to be able to wrap our arms around all that data. So as we begin to prioritize what we need to tackle and how, we can have conversations about what that's going to look like for us.
You had brought this to us some months ago.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
that we were in a situation where our maintenance department was constantly putting out fires instead of doing some preventative things and staying ahead of the things instead of constantly going out and repairing.
Yes, ma'am.
That it seems like a much more efficient way to deal with
Well,
our facilities.
In the perfect world, and this is naive and idealistic, but your maintenance department maintains. Okay, so you can get maximum life out of whatever you've purchased. Our maintenance department's largely a repair department right now.
Right.
And what that means then is then your PM schedules are falling further and further behind. We're not, and Ken, you can feel like we're not getting AC filters changed. We're not getting things dealt with that you need to get done to keep things at their highest operational order to get the most life out of them because we're spending all of our hours fixing stuff that's broken. We probably are getting AC filters changed, but I'm just saying as a random example. So,
I hope we are.
yeah, well,
It's like preventative health care is the cheapest health care you can.
yeah, and I don't want to belabor the point here, but this is not unusual for school districts, and it's especially not unusual in school districts these days because as we're dealing with ever tightening budgets, Like if you're sitting in your house, just think about this, okay? If you're sitting in your house and you're having to decide whether or not to buy a loaf of bread to eat or change the oil in your car, you'll put the oil change off. But at some point when your engine seizes up, you just spent way more money trying to replace an engine, right? Than you would have just invested in the oil changes as you go. And this is one of those, you know, $6,000 in basic allotment, haven't been raised since 2018. We cut, try and put our money into kids and staff, and eventually it starts to catch up with you. And we're at the point of having to see what issues have been created by some of these challenges being kind of kicked down the road a little ways.
All right?
So
Anybody?
we delegate the authority on this. There's not a come back to us with an amount before you proceed, or what does it work like? I don't even know what the next step is what I'm asking, like.
Well, what you'd be doing is delegating authority for me to negotiate and execute an agreement for the highest rank. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell you what we're spending.
Yeah, I mean, you'll let us know, but it's not
100%.
like it's on the agenda again and again and again. Okay.
Well, that's why I asked too about the funding, because that's also significant that this isn't coming out of our M&O.
Right.
Right? This is bond money that we've got that we can spend, but only on appropriate things, and this is an appropriate bond money expenditure. So.
And if you can't come to an agreement on the price versus scope, you can always go to the next.
That's why what we're actually doing is approving the
Qualified.
ranking.
Yeah.
Right? And so our top is obviously fully realized we've communicated.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't work, we go to the next one down the line.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And the other thing is, this doesn't commit us to engage anybody. Y'all get into it and decide, yeah, even though it's bond money, we don't want to do it.
Yeah.
This just authorizes them to do it if that's the best course.
Yes, sir.
So, that said, further questions or discussions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Alford to approve the administration's recommendation. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Witt. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. I'm looking at you, Ashley. It's that time in the meeting. Personnel, we're out here.
You have an amendment at your seats on the personnel recommendations, and just to note, all hiring authority returns to the board as of tomorrow.
But it's information only on our
Yes.
It is
update.
today, yes, sir.
Yes, got you.
Returns tomorrow to the board.
Timing's everything. So the answer to my question is no, there's nothing for us to do out here,
That's correct.
but we're gonna go into closed session on personnel.
And student identifiable information, sir.
Yes. That said, why don't we do superintendent's communications before we go in there? Because I have a sense you might be a minute in there.
Yes, sir. We'll take just a second or two. So I think what I want to do as much as anything, and I know it kind of sounds like we've been hitting a theme this evening, but we've had a pretty smooth launch to school, despite the fact that we've had some issues that we've had to overcome in the process. And our staff has been doing a fantastic job. And I got to tell you, because I'm a recovering high school principal, I tend to be one of those, if I don't say anything, it's going fine. If it's not going well, I'll let you know. But our high school, our principals in particular, are doing a fantastic job of leading our campuses. When I say fantastic, y'all, they work hard every day, and they were doing a fantastic job before I showed up. But this year in particular, we've challenged them with some hard things. When I look at principals and say, we're all going to get to 80 on growth, when we talk about an emphasis on trying to get all students to the master's level of achievement, and I say things to them behind closed doors that I don't say outwardly because it's intimidating, not to them, but like goals I have, places I think we can be, what I think that percentage of masters can ultimately get to. We talk about these things, and our principals have stepped up under the weight of that expectation, and every one of them has said the same thing: Dr. Allen, we're going to get there. And it's a collaborative effort, obviously working very hard with the teaching and learning department, personnel department, what we're doing with administrative services. We're all working together on it. But we're approaching like the end of the first 6 weeks. And that tends to be about the time that accountability kicks in for young people. Like if you hadn't done your homework and you haven't been doing what you're supposed to do. And when that happens, sometimes people are caught off guard by the fact that grades aren't what people thought they were going to be. And so they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job of moving our district in the direction toward positive gain and improvement in what is an extraordinarily challenging context. Not because we're Midway, but because it's education state of Texas right now. And it takes a lot of courage to go in and look at staff and say, we expect the absolute best for kids every single day, knowing full well that we're in the middle of a teacher shortage, but not blinking in the face of challenge because the kids have to have it. They have to. It's not their fault that the state of Texas is where it is. It's not their fault. Someone has to stand in the gap. And so I just wanted to take a moment to kind of publicly acknowledge the hard work being done by our assistant principals and our principals. And y'all, there's an army of people who support them. If they were to tell you right now, they'd say, well, it's really our campus secretaries or it's really our lead teachers or whatever. They don't take credit for anything. But they're doing a fantastic job, and we just can't appreciate them enough. That's it.
We're not clapping for you.
I understand.
Since we're-
I understand.
Yeah, just so we're clear on that.
Very clear, sir.
All right, clock up
It's kind of
here.
thin because the principals and staff are not gonna clap for themselves.
Well, that's exactly right.
It's okay. This clock up here says 8:40 on mine, so at 8:40, we'll go into closed session under Texas Government Code sections 551.074 and 551.0821. And we will come back out and won't be doing anything other than adjourning. But if you want to stay,
Hey, hang out.